Listen to me. Every single one of you is fighting a war you don't even realize you're in. And the battlefield ain't out there. It's right here in your mind. Your worst enemy isn't the economy. It isn't your boss. It isn't your past. Your worst enemy is the part of you that refuses discipline. You say you want success, but psychology teaches us something deep. The human brain is addicted to comfort, addicted to pleasure, addicted to shortcuts. And until you break that addiction, until you take back control, you will remain a slave to yourself. See, the truth is, discipline is the highest form of freedom, because when you can command yourself, nobody else commands you. And until you master you, you will never master your dream. Do you know what's crazy? Most people think they're free, but they're not. They're shackled, chained, locked down, and not by society, not by some external system, but by themselves. You are a slave to your comfort. You are a slave to your impulses. You are a slave to that little voice that whispers, sleep a little longer, eat a little more, skip the work just this once. And the reality is, if you don't break those chains, you will never touch the life you say you want. You don't need another degree. You don't need another talent. You don't even need another opportunity. You need discipline. Without discipline, success will always stay a dream and never become your reality. Let me tell you something I learned early. Discipline is freedom in disguise. It may feel like a prison at first, telling yourself no, when you want to say yes, walking away from pleasures, shutting down distractions. But on the other side of that restraint is power, real power. As the old philosopher Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. Think about that. Freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the strength to not be controlled by what you want. And I've seen it in business. I've seen it in life. A man or woman can have all the talent in the world, but if they can't wake themselves up when the alarm clock rings, if they can't say no to unhealthy spending habits, if they can't control their appetites, eventually they lose it all. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You made money, then wasted it. You got fit, then slipped back into bad habits. You started a project, then quit the moment it got uncomfortable. That's slavery, slavery to self. You say you want financial freedom? Stop waiting for a miracle and start practicing financial discipline. Save when it hurts. Invest when it scares you. Work when you don't feel like working. That's how wealth is built, not in bursts of excitement, but in relentless discipline. You say you want to get healthier? Stop paying people to yell at you in a gym. Yell at yourself. Command your own body. When your mind says stay in bed, you say get up. That's discipline. The person who can conquer themselves is greater than the one who conquers a city. That's not my wisdom. That's ancient wisdom. And it still rings true today. What good is it to win the world but lose control of yourself? What good is success if your habits drag you back into failure? So here's the decision you've got to make. Are you going to stay a slave to your impulses, or will you rise up and lead yourself? Will you keep letting laziness, temptation, and fear chain you down, or will you finally take the key and unlock your own potential? Because I'm telling you right now, success doesn't require more talent. It doesn't require more luck. It requires relentless discipline. And until you break free from yourself, you'll never break through to the life you were born to live. Everybody wants to win, but let me break this down to you. Winning doesn't come to those who work hard. Once in a while, it doesn't come to the person who shows up on Monday and disappears by Wednesday. Success bows only to consistency. Discipline alone isn't enough if it's occasional. You can't plant seeds today and expect a harvest for the next 10 years if you never water the soil again. Success requires you to show up every single day, whether the sun is shining or the storm is raging, whether you feel like it or not. See, the truth is, inconsistency is the silent killer of dreams. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they stop showing up. They start something with fire and end it with excuses. That's why so many dreams stay stuck in notebooks and conversations. They were never fueled by consistency. Let me tell you, if you're running a business, your customers don't care if you feel motivated today. If you're building wealth, the stock market doesn't pause because you're tired. If you're working on your health, your body doesn't adjust because you had a rough night. The world rewards the person who shows up relentlessly with discipline and consistency. Think about a farmer. If he plants in January and says, I worked hard, I deserve a break, by February his crops are dead. Nature itself teaches us the principle. Growth demands daily care. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, stop arguing about what a good man should be one. In the same way, stop talking about what success requires. Live it. Show up every single day and prove it. I've met so many people who were talented, who had more gifts than I could ever dream of, but they never reached the top because they worked in seasons. They let feelings dictate their grind. 1 month they were locked in, the next they disappeared. You can't be seasonal and expect eternal success. Greatness doesn't come to the sprinter, it comes to the marathoner, the one who paces themselves day after day, mile after mile. If you want financial success, you don't save money 1 month and blow it the next. You consistently practice discipline until it becomes who you are. If you're studying, you don't cram for a week and then forget the books for 3 months. You build habits, daily rituals that compound over time. That's how breakthroughs happen. That's how wealth, health, and legacy are created, not overnight, but over time, stacked brick by brick with discipline. Now hear me, consistency isn't glamorous, it's not Instagram worthy, it's not exciting, but it's the secret. You don't see the bricklayers, you only see the finished building. You don't see the hours of practice, you only see the performance. But the truth is, behind every shining moment is relentless repetition. That's what consistency is, the courage to keep swinging even when nobody is watching. And if you can lock in that kind of consistency, your life changes forever. Because success isn't built in a day, it's built daily. And the fuel that keeps you moving forward is relentless discipline expressed every single day without fail. Let me tell you something people don't like to hear. Talent is overrated. Talent will get you noticed, but it will not keep you in the game. I've seen people with unbelievable gifts, athletes, entrepreneurs, musicians, thinkers. They had everything you would think success requires, and yet they vanished. Why? Because they leaned on talent and neglected discipline. And when the storm came, when the pressure mounted, when consistency was required, their talent wasn't enough to hold them up. Talent may open the door, but only discipline keeps you in the room. You can be the sharpest mind in the classroom, but if you don't study, if you don't show up prepared, somebody with less natural ability but more relentless discipline will surpass you. That's why I say don't envy gifted people, out-discipline them. The philosopher Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Excellence doesn't come from talent. It comes from disciplined habits practiced over and over until they become part of who you are. Think about it. The world is full of wasted potential. How many people do you know who were promising? They were supposed to be the next big thing, but they faded. On the other hand, how many people do you know who didn't start out with the most ability, but their work ethic, their discipline, their refusal to quit pushed them to levels nobody expected? That's the power of discipline. It evens the playing field. It closes the gap between the gifted and the hungry. Let me make it real for you. A talented salesperson might close a few deals because of charisma, but the disciplined one makes the calls every day, follows up relentlessly, studies the craft, improves the pitch, and ends up building an empire. A naturally gifted athlete might dominate early, but the disciplined one who trains harder, eats right, and studies the game ends up with a longer, greater career. Talent impresses people, but discipline sustains success. And don't get it twisted. Discipline is not glamorous. Nobody cheers for discipline. Nobody claps when you wake up at 5 a.m. Nobody celebrates when you skip the party to prepare, when you study late into the night, when you turn down short-term pleasure for long-term gain. But discipline always pays dividends. Talent fades, discipline compounds. Some of you are still losing because you keep waiting for motivation, or you keep comparing yourself to people you think are more talented. Stop it. The question isn't, are you talented enough? The real question is, can you discipline yourself enough? Because when two people are equally talented, the one with discipline wins. And when two people are unequally talented, the one with greater discipline still has a chance to close the gap and surpass the other. Life doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most disciplined. Talent without discipline is wasted potential. Discipline without talent still creates greatness. And if you have both, that's when you become unstoppable. So don't fall in love with your gifts. Don't worship your talent. Anchor yourself in discipline, because discipline is the one thing that guarantees you won't just rise, you'll stay there. Here's the problem with most of us. You keep waiting for somebody else to hold you accountable. You wait for a coach, a boss, a mentor, a spouse, a teacher, somebody to keep you on track. And as long as you live like that, you'll never truly be free. Because the moment that voice is gone, the moment that accountability leaves, you fall apart. Real discipline begins the day you become your own voice. The day you can look yourself in the mirror and say, get up, stop making excuses, do the work. That's when you start winning. Don't misunderstand me. Guidance is important. Mentorship is valuable, but at some point, you've got to graduate. At some point, you have to be the one who tells yourself the hard truth. You've got to be your own coach, your own motivator, your own regulator. The old Stoics used to say, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. In the same way, no man or woman will ever rise if they cannot command themselves. Think about it. If your alarm clock controls you, if your stomach controls you, if your feelings control you, you're not living. You're being lived. You're a puppet. And every time you wait for someone else to push you, you weaken your own will. But when you push yourself, when you become your own enforcer, your own disciplinarian, that's when you start to develop power that no one can take away from you. You don't need to pay somebody thousands of dollars to scream at you in a gym. You don't need to buy the fanciest planner to stay productive. You don't need somebody else to text you. Reminders to do the thing you already know you should be doing. You need to build the muscle of self-accountability. That means when you say you're waking up at 6, you get up at 6, period. Not when you feel like it. Not when somebody calls you every single time because you said it. Your word should mean something to you. If you can't trust your own word, how do you expect anybody else to? Listen, a man who cannot discipline himself is already defeated, no matter how much talent or opportunity he has. Seneca once said, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. That's the kind of strength we're talking about. Not physical strength, not financial strength. Inner strength, the strength to say no when temptation comes, the strength to keep going when you feel like quitting, the strength to stay the course when distractions are pulling you 100 different directions. Being your own voice doesn't feel good at first. It feels harsh. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like you're fighting against yourself. But once you learn to command you, once you learn to look at yourself and say, no more excuses, that voice becomes your weapon. That voice becomes your shield. That voice becomes the difference between where you are and where you want to be. So stop waiting for somebody else to police you. Stop needing constant reminders and hand-holding. Stand up, look yourself in the mirror and take ownership. Be your own voice of accountability. Because the day you start disciplining yourself is the day you start creating the life you've been dreaming of. Let me tell you the truth, that most people don't want to face. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to hand you the life you dream about. The moment you realize that, the moment you stop pointing fingers and start pointing at yourself, that's the moment everything changes. Because responsibility isn't a burden, it's power. The second you say, I got me here and I can get me out, you've just taken the steering wheel of your life back into your own hands. Too many of you are volunteers for victimhood. You replay the same story, the same excuses, the same tragedies over and over again. Yes, life has been unfair. Yes, people have hurt you. Yes, you've made mistakes. But as long as you stay in the place of blame, you stay powerless. As long as you keep saying it's their fault, you give them the keys to your future. But when you stand up and say, I own this, I created some of this, and I will change it, now you've taken control. The ancient writer Herodotus said, men are the masters of their fate. That's not just poetry, it's reality. Think about it. If you want wealth, stop blaming your upbringing. If you want health, stop blaming your genetics. If you want peace, stop blaming your environment. Start asking yourself, What can I do today to change my tomorrow? Because the moment you accept responsibility, you give yourself permission to grow. Responsibility is not chains, it's wings. It lifts you because it says, if I'm the problem, I can also be the solution. You're broke. You don't have enough money to cover your bills. You can either sit around and blame the economy, blame your parents, blame your boss, or you can take responsibility and say, I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm going to pick up extra work. I'm going to change my spending habits. One keeps you stuck. The other moves you forward. Or maybe your health is a mess. You can blame your schedule, your stress, your circumstances, or you can say, this is my body. This is my life. And I'm going to take control of it. That's power. Responsibility is the dividing line between the weak and the strong. Weak people spend their whole lives waiting. Strong people take ownership. And I promise you, life will test you. It will throw things at you that you did not deserve. But even then, you still have a choice. You can say, why me? Or you can say, try me. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. The great thinker Socrates once said, let him that would move the world first move himself. That's the game. Stop trying to move the world when you won't even move your own habits. Stop expecting change out there until you make change in here. Responsibility gives you the power to stop being a passenger and start being the driver of your destiny. So don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Embrace it. Because when you take full responsibility for your life, you unlock the power to create any life you choose. Some of you are waiting to feel it before you do it. And that's why you're stuck. You're waiting on motivation like it's an alarm clock, like it's a shot of caffeine. But let me tell you the truth. Motivation is weak. Discipline is strong. Motivation is an emotion. Discipline is a decision. Motivation is what gets you started on Monday morning. But discipline is what keeps you grinding when it's Thursday night. You're exhausted and nobody's watching. I don't care how fired up you are today. At some point, that fire will burn low. That's when most people quit. But the ones who make it to the top, they don't depend on feelings. They depend on systems. They've trained themselves to show up whether they feel like it or not. That's why I say, don't just chase motivation, build discipline. Don't just get excited about the dream. Structure your life so the dream has no choice but to show up. Look at the farmer. He doesn't wait for motivation to plant seeds. He knows the season won't wait for him. He works the soil when it's cold, when it's hot, when it's raining, when it's dry. Why? Because the harvest doesn't care about his feelings. It cares about his consistency. That's why the old proverb says, he who watches the wind will never sow, and he who looks at the clouds will never reap. If you keep waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect time, the perfect energy, you'll starve. I'm telling you, discipline is the bridge between your vision and your victory. You want to build wealth? You don't save when you feel like it. You don't invest when you're motivated. You do it every week, every month without fail. You want health? You don't work out only on the days you're hyped up. You get under that bar, you lace up those shoes, and you move whether your body screams or not. You want mastery in your craft. You don't wait for inspiration. You put in the reps until the reps reward you. The reality is feelings lie. They say you're tired. Stop. They say you deserve a break. Skip today. They say you're not ready. Wait until tomorrow. But discipline tells the truth. Discipline says show up now because tomorrow is built on what you do today. That's why the ancient Stoic Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. You've got to decide that your dream is bigger than your mood, that your future is stronger than your feelings. You've got to train yourself to perform like a machine, even when your mind is lazy. The soldiers of old didn't ask for motivation on the battlefield. They marched because it was duty. And when you start treating your goals like duty, not an option, not a hobby, not a sometime thing, you'll watch your life transform. So stop waiting for the feeling. Stop waiting for the fire. The greatest power you'll ever have is the ability to move forward without motivation, because that's the mark of relentless discipline. And relentless discipline is what makes the impossible possible. One of the most dangerous things you can do after a little success is start believing you've arrived. That's the trap. You get a taste of victory, you get a little comfort, and suddenly you forget the hunger that got you there. Success, if you don't manage it, will make you soft. It will whisper in your ear, relax, slow down. You've earned it. And the moment you listen to that voice, you're done growing. That's why I tell you, cap your success. Not because I don't want you to win big, but because I don't want yesterday's win to make you blind to tomorrow's battle. Listen, wealth, achievement, recognition, these things are good, but they can also destroy you if you start worshiping them. Discipline isn't just about chasing success. It's about protecting yourself from success. You can't let one victory convince you you've reached the mountaintop, because the mountain keeps climbing. What looks like the peak today becomes the valley tomorrow. The wise King Solomon said, "The complacency of fools will destroy them. Success without humility will rot you from the inside." Think about the athletes who win one championship and then disappear because they thought the crown made them immortal. But look at the ones who stay dominant. Year after year, decade after decade, they win, they celebrate, but then they reset. They go back to work like they never won. That's how you stay hungry. That's how you keep your edge. In business, the same rule applies. You close one big deal, you stack some money, you get comfortable, and while you're celebrating, somebody hungrier is working to take your spot. The market doesn't care about your last win. The world doesn't care about your resume. Discipline keeps you sharp, keeps you grinding, keeps you humble enough to realize that success isn't a destination, it's a moving target. When you succeed, don't spend it all. Reinvest it. Don't brag about it. Build on it. Don't stop studying. Study harder. Cap the celebration. Cap the ego. Cap the comfort. Because if you can control success, instead of letting success control you, you'll keep climbing. I remember the old saying, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. That wasn't just written for kings and generals. It's written for you. If you get too high on yourself, life has a way of humbling you. But if you stay humble on your own, if you discipline yourself to act like you're still hungry, even when the table is full, then nothing and nobody can take that edge away from you. Celebrate, but don't settle. Smile, but don't stop. Appreciate what you've built, but never believe the work is finished. Discipline means keeping yourself grounded when the world tries to lift you up too high. Discipline means keeping the fire burning when success tries to put it out. The moment you let your last win be your last standard, you've already lost. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay disciplined, and success will never own you. Life is going to knock you down. That's not a possibility. That's a guarantee. You will fail, you will stumble, you will fall flat on your face. But let me tell you, the fall is not the problem. The problem is staying down. The problem is letting the ground become your home. The strongest people you've ever heard about weren't the ones who never fell. They were the ones who kept getting back up. That's resilience. That's the discipline of refusing to stay broken. See, discipline doesn't just live in the gym or the office or the classroom. It lives in the bounce back. It lives in the decision you make after failure. Anybody can be disciplined when the sun is shining, but can you be disciplined when the storm has taken everything? Can you wake up the day after losing everything and still chase the vision like it's the first day? That's where resilience shows up. Think about the blacksmith pounding iron. Every strike looks like it's breaking the metal, but in reality, every hit is shaping it. That's you. Life is the hammer, and every strike is forming your strength. If you quit after the first blow, you'll never see what you were meant to become. That's why the philosopher Seneca said, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful." When you give up, you waste the very trials that were supposed to sharpen you. Some of you are living proof that you've already survived. What should have destroyed you? You made it through heartbreak, through failure, through loss, and yet you're still here. Don't you see? The fall didn't finish you then, and it won't finish you now unless you let it. The discipline is in standing up one more time than you fall. It's in refusing to let the ground have the last word. You fail a business, start again, but smarter. You lose a job, build a skill, build a network, make yourself undeniable. You mess up your diet, your discipline, your training. Don't throw it away. Get back on track today. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to quit when you're not. I need you to remember this. Your resilience is your reputation. People aren't watching to see if you fall. They're watching to see if you get back up. And when you rise after failure, you give permission for others to rise too. Your discipline becomes contagious. The old proverb says, for a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again. Notice it doesn't say he never falls. It says he keeps rising. That's the whole game. So hear me. The fall is not the finish. Failure is not fatal. Pain is not permanent. What defines you is what you do after the hit. And if you've got the discipline to rise, then nothing in this life can ever keep you down. Most of you out here living life without a blueprint. You're moving every day, grinding, hustling, working, but you don't even know what you stand for. You don't know your code. You don't know your ethos. That's why you can be shaken so easily. That's why distraction owns you, because you never took the time to write down who you are and who you refuse to be. Discipline has to be anchored to something bigger than the moment. Otherwise, you'll fold when the moment gets too hard. You think the great empires of history just stumbled into greatness. No, they built systems, codes, constitutions. Even in war, soldiers were guided by ethos, by principles that told them how to act, how to endure, how to sacrifice. And you trying to live this life of greatness with no ethos, no personal mission statement, no code of honor that keeps you in line. That's why some of you break so easily, because you live by feelings instead of philosophy. But when you got an ethos, it don't matter how you feel. You act because your code demands it. So let me bring it closer. Imagine a house without a foundation. Doesn't matter how beautiful it looks, how high you build it, the first storm will tear it down. That's some of you right now. You got talent, you got ambition, you got vision, but you don't have a foundation. And your foundation is your ethos, your mission statement, the words you live by, the promises you keep to yourself, the non-negotiables of your life. When you say, I don't quit, I don't lie, I don't settle, that's ethos. That's what makes you unshakable. The old philosopher Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Hear me. Habits flow out of ethos. If you don't decide your code, the world will decide it for you. Society will hand you its distractions, its lies, its shortcuts, and you'll just follow because you never claimed your own. Discipline begins the moment you declare, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is the line I don't cross. And I know some of you thinking, that sounds too rigid. That sounds too strict. But listen, life without order is chaos. And chaos eats dreams alive. The strongest freedom you'll ever know comes from the discipline of your own ethos. When you've written it down, when you've burned it into your soul, now every decision has a filter. Should I quit? No, my ethos says I don't quit. Should I cut corners? No, my ethos says I do everything with integrity. Should I give up when I'm tired? No, my ethos says I finish what I start. You need a code so clear that even when you're weak, it speaks louder than your weakness. Even when you're tempted, it pulls you back into alignment. That's discipline. That's what keeps you consistent. That's what makes you stand tall when the world tries to bend you. So before you run after more money, before you chase more success, stop and write your ethos. Decide your mission. Choose the kind of person you will be, no matter what, because once you've got your code, your discipline is no longer a choice. It becomes who you are. You think warriors only fought when they felt like it. You think builders only built when the sun was shining. No, they had an oath, a duty, a discipline that went deeper than emotion. That's why they left legacies behind while others left excuses. If you keep waiting for motivation, you'll never move. You'll sit there scrolling, hoping for another speech, another video, another spark to push you. But let me tell you, discipline is stronger than the spark. Discipline is the engine that keeps you moving long after motivation burns out. Look at a farmer. He doesn't get to wake up and say, I don't feel like planting today, because if he doesn't plant, there's no harvest. His feelings don't change the ground. His feelings don't stop the seasons. He works whether he feels it or not, because his family's survival depends on it. That's discipline beyond motivation. That's understanding the cost of neglect. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius said, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. That's it. You don't rise for comfort, you rise for purpose, you rise because your mission demands it. That's the voice of discipline. And I need you to hear this. You're not always going to feel inspired. You're not always going to feel strong. But discipline says, I move anyway. Discipline says, I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care if I'm lonely. I don't care if I'm unmotivated. I'm still going to put in the work. That's why disciplined people win. They outlast everyone else. Talent burns out. Motivation fades. Excitement dies. But discipline keeps grinding until the job is finished. Some of you quit the moment. Motivation disappears. That's why your dreams look like half-built houses. You started strong, but you never finished. Discipline is finishing. Discipline is laying brick after brick until the house stands, even if no one is cheering you on. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. You better decide which one you're going to build your life with. Listen, don't confuse success with how inspired you feel. Success is a reflection of how disciplined you are when you feel nothing at all. Anybody can run when the crowd is roaring, but can you keep running when it's silent, when it's dark, when it's just you and the grind? That's what separates winners from dreamers. And when you get this in your soul, when you stop waiting for motivation and start living by discipline, then nothing can stop you. Because feelings change, moods shift, but discipline, it stays. Discipline is forever. You've heard me all the way through. Discipline is not an option, it's the foundation. You can talk about dreams, you can talk about goals, you can talk about success all day long, but without relentless discipline, it's just noise. Discipline is the difference between the people who almost made it and the people who actually did. And I need you to decide today, are you going to keep living as a slave to your feelings, your distractions, your vices? Or are you finally going to rise up and master yourself? I'm telling you right now, greatness is waiting on the other side of your discipline. Your family's future is waiting. Your legacy is waiting. But it will not come to the lazy. It will not come to the inconsistent. It will not come to the undisciplined. It only comes to those who wake up every day and demand more from themselves. So stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for motivation to knock on your door. Take control today. Write your ethos, live by your code, and show up with discipline every single day. And when life knocks you down, get back up and say, it's not over until I win.